idea gaining traction in some arenas, especially in Europe, is what is known as the precautionary principle. The basic idea of the precautionary principle is to approach new technology and any new phenomenon, really, with a better safe than sorry attitude. Under this framework, government should limit possible exposure to new hazards until after uncertainties about their effects have been resolved. There are three key hallmarks of the precautionary principle. First, proponents of a product or practice are responsible for having examined all possibilities and chosen the one that has the least likelihood of harm and has no likelihood of harming human health or the natural environment. Second, the decision-making process behind this particular product or practice should truly engage with those affected by the decision being made. In other words, all relevant stakeholders are consulted and effectively engaged in the decision-making process. And third, the consequences of a decision should be monitored so that we can change course if necessary. It is possible, of course, that we might not be able to predict every possible outcome of some new product or practice. And so we monitor those things under the precautionary principle, and if we find that there are harms or are greater harms than expected or something along those lines, that we can change course, we can stop, we can pull back. Now, note that the precautionary principle is very different from our usual approach where we quantify the costs or the risks and then compare them to some quantification of the benefits, and we just basically put it on a scale, and whichever side tips the scale wins. So if there's more benefits, we do it. If there's more harms, we don't do it, and it doesn't really matter what the amount of those harms or benefits are. We just do it based upon which is greater. In the US, there are really only two key places where we see the precautionary principle being used. The first of those is in the pharmaceutical industry. Pharmaceutical development tends to work off of the precautionary principle in that before drugs are allowed to be released to the market, we do have to show that they're not going to be harmful, even if the benefit might outweigh the risk. That we say, no, we don't want to be putting stuff out there that hurts people. And we also see this in environmental impact statements for federally funded projects, that we see at least some hallmarks of the precautionary principle at play. Really, it's also worth noting in both of these arenas, we see elements of that first component, and to some degree the third component. There's really not a whole lot in either one related to the decision-making process and truly engaging all reasonable stakeholders. So even these are only partial implementations of the precautionary principle. For the most part, though, most of US law requires proof of harm rather than the possibility of harm before mandating any kind of protection action. So as we move into our discussion next time on technology and some of the things moving forward in the coming weeks, what I want you to think about is how might things change if we employed the precautionary principle both more completely and more regularly. Food for thought as we move into our future discussions.